welcome everybody to what I'm proud to say is number 7 of a series of conversations that I'll be having with NHS whistleblowers, scientist whistleblowers, vaccine injury whistleblowers. And to say that the last 6 interviews have been emotionally draining for what I've heard would be an understatement. So I'm delighted today for number 7, Breaking the Silence, to introduce a friend of mine, Andrew Horler. We met actually at a protest back in Oxford, where they were talking about this ridiculous, abominable 15-minute city nonsense, and have remained friends ever since, mainly for the story that he's going to share with you today. His official position is that he was, and I'll let him explain what this is, he's a global subject matter expert. So he's got a degree in biotechnology from Nottingham University and then went into this. So he works for Big Pharma, in a nutshell. So no further ado, we've got 2 special guests actually. We've got Andrew and we've got an even more special guest with respect. His pooch, she's called Yeeden.
Yeah, she's
And
called
then
Eden.
part of the introduction, I'm going to let Andrew introduce her and why
So
he's called a Yeeden.
yeah, no surprises really for why she's called Eden. Mike was one of the first guys I reached out to really on Twitter. Well, saw that someone else was saying the same kind of things, or yourself was in that as well. So when it all kicked off, he was one of the first few people that kind of validated the fact that I wasn't losing my mind.
I think I've witnessed the conversation starter. You know, we were walking on the beach, weren't we? And people were coming up saying, "Oh, what's her name?" And you're saying Yeeden, and then people were
Yeah.
saying, "No, what's that about?" And then it's have you had some
Yeah,
moments of,
I've had people inquire obviously what the name. Most people originally think she's called Eden, which I have to correct with a Y, and then well, that's an unusual name. What's that about? And I'm like, it's after a very famous scientist of mine, a hero of mine. He's not that well known yet, but I'm sure he will be in the future.
and is Mike aware you've named a dog after him?
He is, yeah, yeah, and he apologised for any mishaps during the, the house training. But
Brilliant, brilliant.
she's been the best dog I've ever had, Dave. To be honest, she's unvaccinated. She doesn't have a chip in her.
You disgraceful dog owner.
Yeah, and she's the calmest, happiest little soul I've had dogs all my life, and she's just such a good girl.
Amazing. I know she's. I can vouch for that as well, as she lived at mine for a bit, didn't she? With
She
yourself.
did.
With yourself. So, firstly, we just touch on for those who don't know what a global subject matter expert is, and an expert being the key here. Over to you.
Yeah, so the global side really was partly just because I was in a global team. So I was working for a firm, Fisher Scientific. They are more well known really for their lab reagents and lab equipment than they are for pharmaceutical development, but they did acquire a brand called Patheon, who were a contract development organization who specialized in contract development for the pharmaceutical industry. So,
Andy, just to cut in, sorry, I've lost the top of your head.
oh, sorry, yeah.
We want to see
It's
the
because
we
we're
want to
trying to
see.
get the actual star of the show in
I
Eden.
was going to say we want to get the star in, yeah, but now we'll
Yeah,
put the other star in. So,
you
as
have
you
to let
were,
me know.
sorry, as you were. So you were saying they were into this sort of new territory.
Yeah, so they acquired the development company about 15 years ago, I think, and took on that aspect of the business, providing pharmaceutical development from preclinical all the way up to commercial launch for products. So right across phase one up to commercial launch. I was in a global team. Well, I wasn't originally. I joined the business during COVID, actually. It was a very surreal experience. I was down in on Milton Science Park for they have a site down there, and I was put up in the Courtyard Hotel, the Marriott Hotel there. And during lockdown, and one of the lockdowns, and I was having tea brought to my hotel room during my induction week. So it was all very strange. And then we were having thermometers pointed at our heads and stuff going on site to making sure I wasn't too hot and masking up and all the nonsense you had to go through. But I moved into the global team about 8 months into the role, so I was obviously doing something right. So they promoted me. Originally, I was just like looking after the site in the UK from a technical sales perspective, but then I moved into the global team and was my role essentially was business development from a technical sales aspect for our early phase, small scale site in Oxfordshire, Milton Science Park, just about 10 minutes south of Oxford, 20 minutes south of Oxford. And then they had another site over in Bourgoin near Lyon in France, which is the more phase two up to commercial launch of products. So my role essentially was sitting down with new customers, those initial discussions with the sales team, and just thrashing out what was needed to be done from a regulatory pathway, clinical pathway, scoping out the whole project from a technical perspective, liaising with the quotes team, getting the proposal and contracts all drawn up, and then obviously winning the business essentially. So it was kind of a salesy role, but more of a technical. This is what you need to do to satisfy the regulators. This is what you need to do to satisfy clinical demands, ethics, etc. So I did have involvement with looking at new technologies and new equipment for the sites as well. So I always had to keep an eye on any new advances in whether that was drug formulation or processing equipment or whatever that may regulatory changes, for example. So I had to keep an eye on that. So that was part of my role. But essentially, it was business development. Prior to that, I had experience. Most of my career has always been in CDMO, so that's contract development manufacturing. In Nottingham, where I reside, there's quite a few CDMO companies here. So Quotient Sciences are one. Catalent, who are another big world player, pharma, have a site at their early phase site in Nottingham. And I spent periods of time there. Quotient was probably the most useful and most educational from me from an experience and knowledge perspective, because their USP was they used to manufacture the products upstairs in their manufacturing area and then take them downstairs and dose them literally the next day after some QC release testing to obviously prove to the QPs that it was safe. So that was really, really useful because leading projects there, you got to be involved in all dosing decisions, clinical study design, making sure reviewing ethical submissions, reviewing IMPD drug dossier submissions that go into the regulatory bodies, and obviously reacting to clinical data as well. And using that was their USP, really, was reacting to the clinical data as it's materializing from the patient and then choosing a different formulation or optimizing the formulation based on PK, for example.
So what you said so far, I mean, just to summarize, is obviously even the way you speak, people will know you know your stuff. You just sound like you're an expert in this area. But secondly,
Rabbit.
there are processes and protocols and standards and
Yeah.
ethical principles that are
Yeah.
on paper to be followed at all times to win contracts and to then follow through into the practice of developing and marketing.
Well, absolutely. I mean, first do no harm. I mean, it's your oath, as you know, but it's still our oath technically. And we still, we're pushed and trained on it all the time, flagging up any safety concerns, safety, 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 safety.
Can I ask at this point so forget COVID, we'll park that. We'll just put a dividing line pre-COVID and Thermo Fisher. But how long was your career and what did you notice in those years as you went across those standards that we've just talked about? Were they deteriorating? Were they improving?
By the time I graduated, I had about 18 years experience, to the point of being dismissed for whistleblowing. So 18 years. So a reasonable amount of time. And all of that experience was in clinical development and formulation. So I knew my stuff when it came to formulating pharmaceutical products.
So let's say pre-COVID, you had a concern about safety or efficacy or whatever, and you raised that. Would that be taken seriously? Like we'll talk about your whistleblowing to do with COVID.
Yeah, I mean there were several instances during my time at Quotient Sciences. I mean, I got in the industry, Dave. I was probably naive going into the industry, thinking I was actually going to be helping people and making medicines. I think that was a huge naivety on my side looking back. But that was my motivation for doing it. I thought this is great. I'm making people feel better, But as I progressed through the ranks and moved out the labs and more into client-facing roles and strategic roles, I could see that decisions were being made that weren't favourable in terms of safety, weren't favourable in terms of ethics. Even if that was just little decisions during clinical protocol review meetings.
Blind eyes? Do you mean like blind eyes being turned?
Yeah, like deliberately not looking for something. So, for example, in the Pfizer clinical data, they didn't do D-dimer tests or troponin bioassays. That, to me, is deliberately not looking for something.
Particularly when myocarditis and
clotting. Well, exactly. When they knew from all the tox that they'd done in animals that clotting was an issue, why have they not done a D-dimer test? It's not lying, but it's not looking for what you should be looking for. And there were a few instances of that in clinical review protocols. I was actually CMC lead on a project for, I don't know if I can mention their name, probably not, but it
Probably
was in the
not
public
for the
domain,
purposes
actually.
of
You
this.
know what? It's
No,
fine.
don't get yourself in trouble,
No,
Andrew.
I won't. I know it was in the public domain because I remember seeing it in the press. It was a company called Lindra. Now, this company over in the US, they were developing a gastro-retentive device. So basically, it was like a spider. Had a central core with 6 legs with polymers, and drug was loaded into the polymer, and you fold the legs up and put it in a capsule, and then you swallow the capsule, and then it goes into your stomach.
Already freaking me out, the description.
Well, yeah, I think you probably know
Swallow a
what's coming.
spider over to
Yeah, and
him.
it opens up in your stomach, and it resides in your stomach for 7 days, slowly releasing the drug. So it was like you take a whole course of antibiotics, but with just one pill. That was their kind of motivation, or
Just
malaria.
taking an antibiotic every day is so labour intensive. We
Yeah,
need
I
a
know,
bit
yeah.
more.
But patient convenience, convenience, convenience. That's why we're in this mess now, isn't it? But I was flagging up, me and the regulatory lead for the project. We were very concerned about how quickly the capsule was opening up in routine disintegration tests. So these disintegration tests, you basically put the capsule in a vial and just rotate it up and down in a beaker of water and just record the time when it ruptures. These were rupturing within, some were less than 10 seconds.
When
Yeah,
you say rupturing, these polymers were.
yeah, so the legs were spring loaded. So once the capsule wall weakens, it's just bursting out. And sure enough, we were like, well, we've never seen disintegration times this quick. And with it being the nature of it is, we were concerned that if someone doesn't, they were size double zero EL capsules as well. So they're like suppositories, and you're trying to swallow it. You know where I'm going with this. So
These are the greatest pharmaceutical minds in the country coming up with an idea like that, spring loaded, suddenly opening the. Anyway, tell the
I
rest of the
mean,
story.
the idea was great. It just the scale, the size wasn't suitable for the patient. They were trying to maximize drug loading into the polymer. That's what it is, because you're dose limited. As soon as you do start doing something like that, you're limited by how much you can fill into the polymers. So the concept, I think they have carried on working on it and got a much smaller device now that works a lot better. But still, it was an accident waiting to happen in my eyes. And sure enough, I flagged it to the site head and the head of quality. I even got all the QPs. So QPs for qualified persons, for people who are not familiar with the pharmaceutical world. So they're legally responsible for the safety of the product before it gets released into clinic. It's a slightly different system over here compared to the US. The US don't use QPs, whereas in Europe and UK, we have QPs who take ownership, and once they sign that off, they can go to prison basically if anything happens safety wise, and it's proven that they were negligent. So I got the QPs down in the lab and showed them the tests, actually made them watch it and said, would you fancy taking one of these yourself? And again, as I said, raised it to the CEO, said, this is accident waiting to happen. I don't feel comfortable leading this. I had to write, as part of the processes now, I had to write the development report, and they're not allowed to dose until this development report is signed off. It's signed off by the regulatory lead, the quality QP, and the clinical lead. And they tried to make me change the report because they weren't happy with what I put in the report in terms of flagging the safety concerns. And I said, well, that's fine. I am not changing that report and signing it. So they basically got someone to update the report and sign the section that they put in, basically, and sign on my behalf. So I said, I'm not signing that, because you're telling me to remove something out of the report, which I think is very important. And sure enough, during the phase 1 trial, I think it was the second or third volunteer took it, and it opened up in his esophagus, and he had to go to the local hospital for surgery to have it removed. And then there was another.
Perforated his esophagus.
Yeah, it was, the legs basically opened up and was just pushing against his esophagus, so he just couldn't swallow, just had serious discomfort. There was another patient on the trial, though, one of the early ones, who took it, and it went into his stomach, and then the legs they're supposed to fall off as the polymers weaken. And as the legs fall off, it then goes through the pyloric sphincter and passes through the rest of your GI tract. The legs didn't fall off properly. So this kind of spider core with a few legs was basically just scraping down the inside of his duodenum. And I think that patient volunteer was in serious amount of pain until it passed, basically. Imagine passing someone's claws down your intestines all the way. And that happened. And me and the regulatory lead were like, kind of, we told you so. Why? What's the point of us even doing this? I was more aggrieved, really, that they tried to force me to change my report. I mean, that's
And was that the
disgusting.
first time that had happened? Because I briefly worked in science in between the two degrees, and when the control group is exactly the same as the drug group, but there's a lot of money invested here, and you come up with your results as a diligent and ethical scientist, and find that the control actually outdid the drug that all the money's invested on. You're like, go and recount, do it again. So I'd had that
Well,
experience for myself, so I know that there's shenanigans in the old pharma industry and that's
I
why I
think
left pretty much.
I think they have got a bit cleverer than that nowadays. I think they just design their objectives, their primary and secondary objectives in the clinical protocols. They word them and design how they test for them very
Mm.
adequately,
Had
shall
there
we
been
say.
numerous of those in your career? Those sort of nudge, nudge. Do you want to really write that, or can you remember?
Well, over the 16, 17 years, I would say I was made to feel uncomfortable a handful of times, really.
Mm,
Not, it wasn't a frequent occurrence.
mm.
Um,
Let's get to COVID. So you're doing this job, the job that you love. Very little, like you say, moments of like the example you just gave. Take me. You can start where you want because I know it's a traumatic experience ending in you now not working in the profession. Just to put a spoiler in there.
yeah. Well,
Happened.
when it first all kicked off me, I was actually working for Catalent Pharma. I was working from home. Um, and I remember thinking, just primarily, just this is a respiratory virus. Why is everyone going a bit OTT? I mean, all we knew at the time was it was a respiratory virus. So I was like, well, flu, cold. We won't even talk about the fact whether we think viruses exist. We'll leave that out. Flu, cold. What do we normally do for that? Well, you know, we're allowed to say this now. Man up
Yeah,
and
yeah. Well, as a
eat some
doctor,
chicken
I agree. I
soup.
mean, if somebody comes in when they've got a cough, you try to differentiate virus or bacteria, and you're
Yeah,
looking for clinical signs of bacteria, and the decision for guiding towards that is. But if it was the other viral, you just say go home, vitamin C, vitamin D. I mean, what I know now a bit more, I'd guide them to more holistic treatments like the vitamin C, D, B,
yeah,
etc. Anti-inflammatories that are natural, but basically told to man up. I'm going to use your quote. Go home, sweat it out, whiskey and lemon and honey and all this stuff, and you get better.
yeah,
It's a self-limiting, conservatively managed disease.
yeah.
Viruses again, like I said, we'll leave the viruses.
And even as your role as a doctor is to kind of when patients come in, they're obviously distressed, is to kind of put their mental state at ease as well, isn't it? Because that obviously has a massive impact on their physical well-being. So, having these calming discussions, reassuring them it's
Mm.
nothing to worry about, etc. Whereas media and the rest of the world, all the doctors that went on the TV, fear, 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 it's going to kill you, going to kill you. And that just spikes everyone's cortisol, just damages our immune system from the off. Then they lock us away and keep us out the sun, and that damages our Vit D
So
level.
what was the sort of initial response from the company you worked for at the time? Were they involved in anything COVID?
Oh, it was draconian. It was mass everywhere, single working spaces. It was, of course, nothing stopped. It was all right to carry on doing stuff in the labs and the GMP area. It's a bit like the Premier League, it carried on, didn't it? The football and the rugby, etc.
And the
Stuff that,
horse racing.
yeah, that. But the rest of it was very draconian. I mean,
Was it overnight? Just like you'd go into work the next day and you've got these spaces to
I
work.
mean, there was emergency meetings put in about how we're going to do it. And I mean, in fairness to everyone, no one really knew, Dave. I mean, I'm not going to tear into people because everyone was coming from it. No one really knew, really,
Mm.
apart from the people down in Westminster who knew the truth.
How dare you?
Um, so I can understand why everyone erred on the side of caution. I mean, that's fair enough, but it was pretty demoralizing. You weren't able to communicate with people that well, sit in public offices. So that kind of atmosphere at work was was damaged in a way, and like communication, people were a bit on edge. Um, People were genuinely scared. I mean, I remember being down when I first joined Thermo Fisher, that during the lockdowns. People were genuinely scared about what was going on.
Mm.
And I can only put that down to the media. I
like you say, that constant adrenalinization, whether it's the
yeah, yeah. I
TV,
mean,
whether,
getting
I mean,
in,
even walking around, if you're driving and it's empty streets, even that in itself, it's an apocalyptic scene, driving around and you've got no cars or people
it
or
is. I can
down.
remember going for a bike ride on Easter Sunday, and I think it was in the first lockdown, and I saw 8 cars, and I went for about 30 or 40 miles. I counted how many cars I saw, and that in itself was a strange experience, just going on the bike and not seeing anyone about.
So what led you to go to Thermo Fisher from where you were? I mean, I presume where you were before was nothing to do with COVID vaccines or.
No, no. So it was still formulation, scoping out projects, similar kind of role, working with the business development. But this was just a kind of step up. It was a promotion, really. It was just a new role.
And had
Yeah.
Thermo Fisher been involved in any sort of immunology, vaccinology type? Was that their arena like Moderna? They never had any pre.
So Thermo Fisher do have sterile components, and Catalent don't have as big a sterile presence in the CDMO world as Thermo. Thermo they have two sites, a site in Monza and Ferentino in Italy that were manufacturing steriles for all
What is a
sorts.
sterile for people who don't know?
Anything it has to be injected, so it has to be aseptic.
Yeah.
So obviously manufacturing processes for that are very different to ensure sterility. No, you can't have any microbial contamination because it's going straight into the blood. It's all right to have some poison in there though, as long as there's no microbes. So they started, when I was working at Firma, they were tendering for contracts for Pfizer and Moderna. And sure enough, the Swindon site, which was another UK site for Thermo Fisher, was putting in a huge Pfizer line, millions and millions of pounds being spent on adding in a new Pfizer line to manufacture Pfizer. They were already manufacturing Moderna over in their Italian sites. And we're obviously looking to scale that up as much as possible. Everyone was just vaccine crazy. The attention on my side of the business, because I was more away from sterols, more tablets, capsules, liquids, suspensions, so oral products. The attention just shifted massively to steriles because everyone was like, "Ooh,
Was that across the board? Like everyone had
ooh."
just left their desks doing whatever they were doing previously to be tunnel vision
It
vaccine?
was more the business. I'm talking more the management side now. The pound signs or the dollar signs were,
Whirring around. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah.
We want our
Uh,
piece of the pie.
the contract, the Pfizer deal alone was worth hundreds of millions, you know. So, and then there's me saying, trying to raise internally with my peers that, well, yeah, this is going to earn you a few £100 million, but the damage it's going to do after is going to be
So was
irreparable.
that your gut instinct from just hearing about the technology that was being used, the novel, the
Yeah,
gene-based approach? The
well, that's what first got me going, jumping like a hot cat off a off a bat. It was just, I was unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, mate, with the mRNA
Because there
technology
was nothing
being.
like it before, correct me if
No,
I'm
no,
wrong.
no,
It's a never used on humans platform. Lipid nanoparticles have never been injected into humans. Suddenly,
no.
everyone's diving over themselves to get their 100,000, 100 million,
Well,
billion
this is it.
contracts.
This is it. So as I said earlier, part of my role was keeping an eye on the regulatory landscape and new technologies coming through and new delivery platforms and any way that could make delivering drugs, because drugs tend to be insoluble, not very favorable in physiological conditions. So you had to process them and formulate them as best you can to maximize bioavailability. So we had to keep an eye on these things. So mRNA was been on the radar for years. You know, it's but they never got anything through preclinical, and
I was
I
going to
knew
say,
that.
so that was a good point I was going to ask you to make. So this has been around for a while, the concept, and the
Yeah,
concept's a good concept
yeah.
if it's done in the right way. Um, how long would you say normally it would take a vaccine to come out, the trials, the phase 1 to 4 trials? What's the average?
Ah, for a vaccine, I'm going to say longer, really, because of the safety toxicity. But I mean, it's about 8 to 10 years normally. I think you could get a solid dose product quicker than that, a routine capsule or tablet. Um, but look, what I've learned now, Dave, subsequently from seeing all these horrors and doing research on the whole process, is that the FDA themselves openly admit that there's no actually solid science behind any of the vaccine approvals historically.
Mm.
No one's ever been able to, one, provide an actual proof that the virus itself has existed. Yeah, and you're having FDA whistleblowers, lawyer whistleblowers. I was reading an article the other day saying that the actual physical science around the need for vaccines has never been there. There's never been a justification for them,
Mm.
which I mean, obviously makes sense now and supports some people's beliefs that viruses are not, it's terrain theory, not germ theory, the cause of the issue. So
Well, in a way, I mean, COVID's just history repeating itself from in a
Spanish
summary
flu,
of what we've seen.
yeah.
It's yeah. Well, even the lack of, I mean, so what was the instruction to you? So this COVID vaccine's on the waiting to enter the supply, not the supply chain, the conveyor belt of production at the place where you worked. Did it have any role in the development of it, or was it this is how you
Well,
made?
I had no role. I wasn't looking after the Swindon site, so I had no oversight, involvement with whatsoever. I mean, I knew people involved, and I knew that people knew that the harms as well, like me, but were, I want to say sabotaging, but let's just say the installation of the plant, the Pfizer plant, didn't go as quickly and as smoothly as they were hoping. I
Mm.
think people's enthusiasm and kind of eagerness had sapped out of them, so they weren't busting a gut to get it done.
That's good to hear. Yeah,
Well,
so you
yeah,
just
yeah, and
taking
I
the
was
time with
like,
the screwdrivers. And
because they were kept on having delays, and all I was hearing, because obviously I was sitting a global team with two people who were sterols, and I had the other two people were solid dose, so that's me, capsules and liquids and tablets. So the sterols guys, we used to give updates to our boss, who was high up in Thermo Fisher Scientific Services, and the updates they used to give were that there was just delays with installation, delays with kit and validation, so it was just delayed after delay after delay. And I dared say, what's going on with all these delays?
But there was a race on at the time. There was an active race on to be
Of
the
course there was,
first
yeah.
to pioneer the first jab, which was Pfizer, I
Yeah,
think, in the end, wasn't it?
it
Beat.
was Pfizer's first one. Yeah. Well, and AstraZeneca, Oxford
I mean,
AstraZeneca.
just while we're on the point of sterols, it's just triggered a question. You've seen about the contamination. How does that happen? I mean, they're not just contamination from bits of dust or flecks of whatever. These
No,
are
the
E. coli.
contamination's deliberate.
Yeah. Well,
There is,
that's what I was asking you because
yeah, yeah. There's
if
no,
you are following a protocol, the chances of an E. coli plasmid in their thousands, millions actually, being found in those sterile vials with genetic sequences for oncogenes and other bits and bobs and nothing good, prior and open reading frames, etc.
no,
How does that happen? That doesn't happen without
no, no. The
intent.
issue with steroids is you can't really touch the process.
Mm.
That's the whole point of it. Because as soon as you start, I mean, we carry so much bacteria on our fingers and skin that
So there has to have been an active directive to put this stuff in.
well, most of the issue, my understanding, Dave, comes from the actual, you have like an intermediate, the actual mRNA itself.
Because they talk about, I've seen a lot lately about allowable percentages. You're allowed a percentage of genetic
Yeah,
DNA.
so that was the DNA contamination, the FDA limits being well exceeded.
How's DNA getting in there anyway? Let
That
alone an
was
allowable limit.
because they were using that to replicate the mRNA in big vats, weren't they? So that's again, you produce your mRNA in huge vats via bacterial plasma or viral plasmids, and then you're supposed to purify that off, and all that is supposed to be the manufacturing intermediate,
So
especially.
run me through that because that's the point of learning for me. So they were manufacturing the actual naked mRNA from
Yeah, so
the
that strand that tells our cells to produce the protein has to be manufactured over and over again. So they use big, huge, almost like vats to do this, and then they purify off the mRNA. And then the viral vectors used to replicate and produce the mRNA are supposed to be removed. But
Mm,
obviously that wasn't happening. So you're getting these the SV40 viral promoters in contamination actually in, and it's not come during the actual manufacture of the vaccine. It's come during the manufacture of the intermediate step.
mm.
So the mRNA is basically an intermediate that gets in.
But the question is, what the bleeding hell is SV40 promoter sequence doing in those plasmids in the first place, as well as the prion motifs? It's just unbelievable. But
Well, this is it. Nothing's as Mike Eden keeps saying, and I like this quote from his. Everything's in there for a reason. As a formulator, and we have to justify even if it's milligrams, we have to justify what it's in there for and what its function is. And they know damn well what this stuff does.
And they knew before the rollout. I spoke in a previous
Yeah,
podcast
of
today
course they do.
about, they're well aware, even pre-rollout, that there were batches being shipped out just at the point where they were just starting the first jab that they were
Yeah,
contaminated. And the best advice from the MHRA, from a room filled with pharma executives, so it's hardly without conflicts of interest, talked about contamination, just telling people to hold it up to the window and see whether you can see through it. If there's a milky appearance, throw it away. But at that point, they'd already started jabbing people with the contaminated vials. So, and there is this batch correlation, isn't there? That
oh yeah, there's
beyond all reasonable doubt, there's
huge
a
differences between the batch numbers and the side effect reporting. And there's also, I don't know if you've seen videos, but some people have said that they've tested vials and not even found mRNA in the vials.
yeah, again, loads of vial analysis was going on in the early part, weren't there? There were saline vials, there were
Yeah,
varying degrees of concentration of mRNA, even to the point where, if you're not shaking it, the person who got the last dose in the vial got a high concentration. And then
exactly. I've spoken about the
there's
dosing practices. They're unreal, really, because they were just pulling in volunteers off the street to help in these centres.
yeah,
And the reconstituting a dosing preparation, we generate A4 page of strict, and I mean strict, very rigorous and tested line step by step of how to do it. If you've got no one with any experience, they could be shaking it. One could be shaking it up like this, and one just giving it a little swirl, and you've got a one vial where undissolved dose, and you take the first dose out, and they get a low dose, and then this vial sits there for 15 minutes, and then next person comes along, and they get a supercharged dose.
So what did you make of the whole, like when we first saw it, it was almost like a wonderful moment in Cornwall where the van came in and there were cryo liquid nitrogen flowing out the back of it. And we got these first few boxes and everyone was like, woo, amazing, the vaccine's here. So we went from this super frozen.
That was the other thing, yeah, the supply
About a
chain
week
change.
later, they're just lobbing it in the fridge or popping it on the
Yeah.
corner of the side and using a Moderna for him. What have you had before? Pfizer. Oh, we'll give you a Moderna. It's fine. I mean, am I going insane? But you've worked
No,
in
no.
pharmaceuticals. Where's the data for these multi-combis? Now, I've seen people who've had two Pfizer, two Moderna, and AstraZeneca, and a Johnson and Johnson. Where's the robust,
Well,
prospective data on that combo,
this is
that
it.
Russian roulette?
It was unreal, wasn't it? The Pfizer had to be frozen, and cold chain storage and supply chain for that was so problematic that rather than sort it out, they were just like, oh
Sod
well.
it.
So for the benefit of the viewers, when you submit data packages to regulatory bodies, you have to show that your product is stable from a assay perspective and degradants across different temperature ranges. So you normally do 2 to 8, 25 degrees, 60% RH, which is like ambient. And then you'll do a higher accelerated condition, which more like tropical humid environments, 40 degrees C, 75% RH. And you generate data and test and prove that it's either not safe at those temperatures or is. And if it's changing, you're not supposed to assign shelf life. And obviously Pfizer was, I think it was minus 40, was it, storage condition? Or it was certainly frozen.
It went out the window so quickly. There was
Yeah,
a
and then it just stopped.
There was a thing that we called Pfizer snobbery. So people, because it's a bigger company, people were demanding the Pfizer. And
Well,
again, we had a load of volunteers giving these things out untrained. You do a 1 hour course, and we had the lowest rank of nurses. So we had like physicians associates running the vaccine rollout, and in what I called the jabatoire. So people were walking in, roll the sleeve up, jabbing the arm, no information exchange, stopwatch for 10 minutes, out the door, collapse sometimes, and that was going on the lowest grade of people. And all the doctors were doing were checking people in. They weren't,
the
they weren't
leaflets.
touching it. They weren't touching it.
So you think the doctors are basically passed the buck over onto
Oh,
the
without doubt.
nurses?
I've heard this story over and over again. I mean, the people who were giving it were either volunteers or very junior. There were a few doctors who wanted to save lives, and join the life saving campaign. But anyway, that said, let's move back to your career. So you started to feel in your pit of your stomach there's something not right about this technology.
Yeah. So obviously,
And when did you start becoming
I
a
started raising concerns in my immediate peers. So as I said, I was in a global team. I had a guy in China, another gentleman over in the US. There was a lady in the US and a lady in Italy, and we all reported into the head of scientific services, essentially technical services, for pharma at Thermo. And we used to meet once a month, talk about the sites, what different issues, challenges at the sites, etc. You so I raised about the COVID response, just my concerns. And I was sending emails with, I sent one email um, to my team and the site heads and my boss, just saying that I was considering my future in pharma because I couldn't believe what was happening. And I quoted in that about the data that we were seeing from ONS when we could vaguely trust ONS data, that we were saying we saw a 56-fold increase in all-cause mortality in adolescents, 12 to 18-year-olds, double vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And I showed that and I said, if that's not a big enough signal for us to be investigating or at least questioning what's going on here, I don't know what is. And it just fell on deaf ears. And then weeks later, they're approving it in 6-month-old babies. And I'm like,
Well, the signal wasn't even when it's rolled out. The signal was in the Pfizer trial.
oh yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
a,
yeah,
I
exactly.
I think there were
This
four
is
heart
this is very
attacks,
deep.
weren't there? There were four heart attacks in the Pfizer group. One in
6 more deaths in the active versus the placebo, and most of those deaths were cardiovascular.
and then
Yeah,
they unblinded, didn't they? Just to
they did. They unblinded after
muddy
two
the
months.
water.
I get there's so many issues. I mean, I've done a whole video. It's a very sweary video. I did a whole video.
We need this. I'll put the link to this for the around
Yeah,
our.
one of my podcasts. Just I basically did like a GCP, good clinical practice audit on Pfizer's own report. And I'm not a GCP. That's not my expertise. Yes, I've been involved with designing clinical, so I know a fair bit, but I'm not by any stretch an expert in that area. And it's just tearing it apart. So many fundamental errors, so many basic GMP, GCP practices not
So why are
followed.
these pharmacists who are skilled at picking up the same things you're picking up? Why are they suffering ostrich syndrome?
I do you know what, Dave? I don't know. I don't. I'm disappointed with the people in my team. Because they're supposed to be as you know knowledgeable as I was. What my American counterpart, who I was actually good friends with, I haven't spoken to him since really, but he was basically just saying, "Oh, you need to keep quiet. This is political. It's all political." I was like, "Well, no, it's not about politics. This is about people dying."
This is a new thing, isn't it? This whole keep
Yeah.
quiet. It's not to stay out of it. Put your head in the
Well, yeah,
sand.
and he was encouraging
So
me. He was trying to do me a favor. He was like, "Just keep your head down. Just keep your head down." And I was like, "I'm not one for keeping my head down." If something's wrong, especially so serious as this, I mean, we're just that's the other thing. Dosing a new technology into everyone in the world was their aim. Why?
in
You've,
lockstep,
you've,
wasn't it?
you've,
It was
you've
international
yeah,
effort.
but even if you think about the fact they've had other vaccine technologies for years, whole variant vaccine technologies that have, all right, in hindsight now, I wouldn't never recommend anyone to take any vaccines going forward.
Mm.
But at the
Well,
time,
they were vaccinating people who had recovered from the alleged COVID. So that again, that has no scientific basis. You
yeah,
had COVID 3 weeks ago. It's your time for the first jab. Their jab on top of natural immunity, and natural immunity was called, despite being supported at the beginning, in herd immunity. We saw Chris Whitty, Van Tam talk about it. Went out the window for this push for even jabbing recently recovered patients.
yeah,
It makes no immunological sense from the basic principles, and yet they were still doing it. And
yeah.
they're the most vaccine injured now, those who were jabbed on top of jab, on top of COVID, on top of jab, jab, jab. And again, we'll leave the virus existing thing for now, for another one, because I know you've covered it. But so yeah, so you'd had this
Well, I'm
little,
still not even sure about it, Dave. I mean,
well, I'm sort of somewhere in between. That's where I'll
yeah,
pitch my
I
flag.
know
But
something's making people sick, but I don't think
yeah.
it's magic ball with spikes on.
So you've had this meeting with your international colleagues and you've raised your initial concerns about myocarditis, basically told to shut up,
Yeah,
calm down, and you just kept seeing things and you rebel roused or troublemaker.
yeah, yeah. So then I went on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Went on LinkedIn, started posting a lot on LinkedIn. So I
You
shared.
decided you're not going to win this from the inside looking out. You need to be
Yeah,
on
well, I
the
would have gone
outside.
to my peers. Deaf ears,
Yeah.
deaf ears. Didn't get
Right.
one response. Didn't get one reply to the email. Although, and then a few months after that, I sent it just to my team members, so not my boss or any of the site heads.
And that email read what? Just to give us a flavour. Like these are dangerous. Get them off. They're not safe or effective.
Yeah, just like saying there's kids clearly dying here in the UK. It's killing kids.
Who had bugger all chance of dying of COVID.
Yeah, who had no risk of the virus. So what and I just said, what are we
What's the
doing here
rationale?
working with this? Why are we even contemplating working with Pfizer and Moderna? So I said then I can't I can't support any technical discussions with Pfizer and Moderna going forward. And that's kind of what started the HR battle against me because they were, oh, he's not willing to join.
Dissenter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I event that what happened later on after that, no response from my peers. Went on LinkedIn, started sharing stuff about the Moderna patent from 2016, where they had the perfect human homologue of the furin cleavage site that means it binds to the ACE2 receptor, filed in 2016.
Yeah.
Funny
It's
that.
quite similar to a certain HIV
Yeah,
sequence, wasn't it, as
it
well?
is very similar. Very, very
Well,
similar.
put it this way, it wouldn't have occurred naturally.
But
Let's both agree.
I mean, I knew what I was doing on LinkedIn. I'm not going to lie to people. But I worded it as like, I'm a biotechnologist. I found this very interesting. Any other biotechnologists on LinkedIn see that questioning why Moderna got a patent for the exact sequence that allows this virus to bind to our receptors. Seems odd to me. Seems a bit fishy.
And then let's inject lots and lots of little mini mRNA structures wrapped with a lovely toxic bit of lipid nanoparticles in
Yeah.
their millions into the
And a
eye.
bit of graphene oxide there as well.
Often straight into the intravascular, and we know there's loads of studies in
Yeah,
animal
it was supposed to
studies.
be. It was supposed to be intramuscular, wasn't it?
So,
Or
but
subcut.
again, they took out the simple measure that takes all of about half a millisecond to aspirate the chamber. And if you aspirate in this blood, you don't proceed, you move to somewhere else. There's a very small safe zone for a deltoid injection. And you got the florist and the fireman and the
See,
volunteer and
I have not
the
seen
lollipop
anyone.
lady having a crack at vaccinating someone.
Yeah, I've not seen anyone. Even on the you see the bloody politicians getting their saline shots on the TV, mate. The nurses aren't aspirating.
But didn't Pfizer have a special batch for their employees? Wasn't there
Oh,
a
did they?
special batch in Australia? So special batch, wink, wink. Anyway, so you've taken to social media because everything else has fell on deaf ears,
Yeah,
and
so now
and
that's
then
that's
your
when I started
careers.
getting into trouble then.
This is what I'm saying. So this has a direct impact now because you've dared
Yeah.
to use social
So
media.
on my LinkedIn profile, I was very before I started, I said views of my own, did the disclaimer, views of my own, not of my employer. I don't know if that legally has any weight or clout or what, but they obviously didn't care the fact that I put that kind of disclosure. So someone ratted me out in the business to my line manager saying that they weren't comfortable with the amount of comments that posts I was making about Pfizer and Moderna's involvement in the vaccine rollout. And I've shared,
You're compromising our big money contract here, Andrew.
well, this is it, yeah. And I was posting the data I mentioned about the kids, the 12 to 18-year-olds, and saying what the hell are the MHRA are doing here?
Well,
Yeah,
even the JCVI said, didn't they? The Joint Committee Vaccine and
yeah.
Immunisation said no to the kids.
And guess who heads up the MHRA now? After June
It was
Rain,
June Rain, but now it's
it was June Rain. Now they've replaced it with the old head of the JCVI, Stephen Hamworth or whatever his name is. I can't remember. Yeah,
it's a big
but
club.
another monster basically.
It's a
Who
big club.
even decided to vaccinate children?
So you've been ratted out, and you go into work one day. Was there a day where they just pulled you in and said, "Look, oi,
So
enough's
there was
enough"?
a day where this was November 2022. I actually had an hour and a half sit down with UK HR head and just offloaded everything. Just shared with her all the data, all my thoughts, my concerns. My, I was quite, yeah, I angled it towards the business. The business motto for Firma Fisher was make the world healthier, safer, cleaner. And I'm like,
Sorry.
I'm flagging because we're not going to make the world healthier. This is going against our company vision because
It's not in
corporate shit,
keeping
they
with
love
our
that shit,
mission
don't they?
statement.
They love that. They love this corporate goal bollocks that they try and put on people and they make it look like they're doing good. Like
So
same thing.
your 90 minutes with this executive, what happened? Did they listen? Did you feel they were
No, and
empathetic?
basically, it was just a fact-finding mission for how extreme were my views. So I got back to my line manager, um, and then what did come out of the HR meeting was she formally recommended to go down the global ethics whistleblowing policy, which I did. So I've done exactly what they told me to do. Um, and spoke to a lady over in the US and the headquarters for the business.
There's an organisation set up for this.
Yeah,
Global
there's an
Ethics.
actual group, a team within because firma's massive. It's just for global ethics, whistleblowing issues, or raising any concerns
Perfect
about
fit.
anything.
So you've done the call.
Yeah, I've sent you the what I actually sent to that ethics because that was basically a written bit of prose where I just stuck all facts and figures down and references.
No, but that's a key, Andrew. Facts, figures, references. So there were
Yeah.
no loony ideas about flat Earth, or I'm not saying that's loony. I'll leave that for another conversation. But you're not making up conspiracy theories here, and your
Okay.
facts, figures, and ethical principles, etc.
Yeah, I mean, this is government, Pfizer's own data and government's own data.
Well, I got
And
back.
it,
I got banned from LinkedIn for holding up Moderna and Pfizer's sex submissions for a year that said these are immunomodulatory gene therapies. They'll never be used in humans because of the
yeah.
poor clinical trial performance regulator. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I'm holding the documents up like this, poking my head out, running my finger along. And I'll put it on LinkedIn. I'm permanently banned still to this day for that
Well,
one.
I'm banned now. I did come off. I deleted my account because I was basically being pressured by my line manager. So I deleted my account.
So that's what they
Then,
said. Get off social media, off.
yeah, get off. Yeah, get off. That was the first advice. Get off. So it's like, oh, okay. So I deleted LinkedIn. I was a bit quiet. Went onto Twitter then. I was ambushing people on Twitter because no one knew I was linked to the business through Twitter. So I soon got permanently banned off Twitter as well.
But anyone did. I mean, within hours of anything
Yeah, yeah.
anti-narrative, you were again at the pre-Elon Musk. I think I had the full set at one time: YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram,
Yeah,
Facebook.
I'm not on any now. I mean, I could be on Facebook, but I came off it again because of what happened with, my ex-wife stopped me from seeing my daughter for stuff I was posting on Facebook.
Well, I mean, this is what we'll come to the repercussions of this. So
Yeah.
you've tried the right way. You've gone onto social media, and to be honest, a pretty awful social media platform LinkedIn is. It's completely abhorrent.
Yeah, but it was great because I had a lot of contacts in pharma
Mm.
and they were seeing it. So it was very good from that, and I knew they were seeing it. Um, so it was very good from that respect because I knew surely they cannot not read what I've posted and start to ask questions. That doesn't seem. Why had Moderna got a patent, for example, 4 years before? I thought this virus came out of nowhere. This was all.
It's that man in the back, wasn't it, down the market there, just up the road
Yeah,
from the
the
Wuhan
bloody
Institute.
pangolin. Yeah, the bloody hanging pangolin or
It's
whatever
the
it was.
bank. It's the bat soup.
Bats,
You
bat
conspiracy
soup.
theorist.
It's just yeah.
Insane,
So
insane.
HR basically encouraged me to do this global ethics. I did it. Came back after Christmas. Oh, sorry, I must say the response I had from that was pathetic. So this was the head of the global whistleblowing team. She basically, in the review meeting after, the review meeting basically involved, what do you want me to do about it? And I was like, well, that's why I kind of
Asking you
raised,
what to do about
that's
it.
why I raised the concern. Because to you, so you can take some action.
Called escalating.
Yes. And said, she said, well, what I want you to do about it is to tell the business to stop making Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Can you do that? And she said, of course I have no power to do that. So I said, well, what's the whole point of this process then? It's just a waste of my time and waste of your time. So Christmas came then, 22, and I came back in after Christmas, and one of the first few emails I saw was a disciplinary hearing. And I was like, oh, here we go. So I had a disciplinary hearing with the head director of
What are the
HR.
charges against you here now? So the charge sheet reads: you went on LinkedIn and posted some articles.
So the charge sheet, inappropriate use of company email. So that was basically the emails I sent to my team and the site heads. Because I hadn't sent any emails to customers.
Hmm.
I would never do that. I'm not
Would
stupid.
you say they're trying to dig for dirt here and find anything?
Yeah, and then the other second charge was, I could pull it up, mate. Read it to you.
You evil man.
I know, such a naughty boy.
Raising this is very familiar. Raising safety concerns and ethical concerns leads to, well, we'll come to that in a minute. How it's things have ended, but so the charge sheet you've walked into, and you said it's around Christmas, so it's a nice little Christmas gift for you.
It was 4th of January, 2023.
Happy New Year.
Invitation to disciplinary hearing. Inappropriate use of company email and potential damage to company reputation and/or client relations. And then
Despite the disclaimer.
second charge was a potential failure or inability to do something fundamental to the fulfilling of your duties due to the opinions expressed in the investigation regarding major customers and regulatory authorities. So basically what that was in relation to was the fact that I pointed out that Moderna and Pfizer are basically killing people. The MHRA and FDA are not stopping them from killing people. That's not basically what it was. I did mention Biogen as well with another drug that just got approved for Alzheimer's, which had very serious safety concerns. But of course,
So again,
FDA.
another case of somebody who's highly skilled, intelligent. You know, the job you do, as you said at the outset, was quality control and all this process of making everything. And then you've done what you're encouraged to do. You've
Yeah,
even contacted
my job.
the global ethical division of the company, and then it's ended up in what you just said was frivolous
Well,
rubbish, wasn't it? The
I mean,
charges.
looking back now, Dave, I think they wanted me to do that because that was their ticket to get me out the door.
Yeah. How long did it last then? So you went into this
So I
disciplinary.
did the disciplinary hearing on the 18th of January. I was sacked on the 30th of Jan or 31st. Over Teams, both done over Teams. I didn't have to go to HQ, UK HQ. It was just the head of the legal team in the UK and the head of director of HR for the UK. Sat down for both meetings. And in the first meeting, I presented all the case. I mean, I even went as far down as referencing the previous vaccines, Rota Shield, and they've been taken off for 1 in 100,000 serious side effects, and then there's another one that was 1 to 2 in 10,000, and then we're looking at the COVID ones, which is 1 in 800, and I'm like, and yet we're still not only are we coercing people to take it and mandating it in countries around the world, we're putting it in our kids,
They
and
were ripping through the ages, weren't they, so quickly?
yeah, and as soon as it,
this is for the fat, morbidly obese, comorbid patient, and then it went down to 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and then the kids. That was what made me.
like,
And
a
then the
challenge. How
pregnant
can
women.
anyone say that a 6-month-old baby needs this injection?
Oh no, but again, you still hear now paediatricians in 2025 saying that their wards were full of COVID kids and the ITUs were full of adult
They're
COVID.
lying. Absolute lies.
No, I've never ever. I tell a lie. Yesterday, I spoke to an ex-colleague of mine, an ex-medical school, and he told me that it was jammed. The ITUs were jammed, but I've never had a report from anyone that said that the ITU was jammed until yesterday. The BBC said it was jammed, but when they were saying that, I mean, part of one of my GMC issues at the moment is about a pregnancy matter, and I've got to be careful what I say. But saying that the vaccine is safe, 100% in 100% in pregnancy, when they were not part of the clinical trials, they were excluded for being pregnant. And then you look at the incidental pregnancies. I've been through this before, but essentially a quarter of the participants ended up with a severe adverse event in a very small
But didn't
274.
81% miscarriage rate in
Well,
the
they only bothered to report 32.
25 out of
No,
37
there
followed
were
up on or something?
32 women, five were still pregnant, 27, 26 fetal death.
27 miscarried.
26 out of 27
Yeah.
miscarriages or fetal
That's
deaths.
unreal. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's safe and effective. And then they
I
had the
remember going
audacity.
mad about that on social media, saying they're pushing. How can any doctor give this to a pregnant lady? And they were
But
pushing
again,
it.
I mean,
They never even had any data.
I'm being told that the obstetric wards were full of women dying of COVID-19. It's false. It's not true. It's
No.
just not true. I've never heard of a pregnant woman that got anything but a sniffle or a cough, let alone, and there were people dying of postpartum hemorrhages and they swabbed the nose, they were positive COVID death. It's absolute criminal insanity going on and criminal negligence and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. But so you got your marching orders, you got your P45. Did they give you a payout? Did they sort you out? Or
So they sat me with my notice. So I was basically on gardening leave 3 months. And I was like, well, you can't just sack me for this. So I was genuinely surprised that they did dismiss me. I mean, I said to my ex-wife at the time, I said, there's a chance that I might lose my job here, based on people's experiences like yourself and the hardships that people were seeing for being censored and shut down. And
it was a lot. It was a zero tolerance to dissent, wasn't it?
yeah,
And it
yeah.
was lockstep.
So there was I was a little going into the whole thing. I was like, because I just bought a big house, I was on the uh, the property climb, I had a hybrid car, all the things that you do when you're fast asleep and you
Well,
care
let me
about.
asking, you don't have to answer this, but what sort of salary have you sacrificed to speak out for patients? You don't have to give it. Was it six
With
figures?
bonus, it was almost 6 figures.
6 figures. And you've given
Yeah.
that, and you get called a grifter, even though you've given all that up,
Yeah.
that house up on the ladder there. And
Yeah.
we'll come to where you are now. But so that was your last day ever working in pharma.
It was, yeah. I've tried to get back in it, Dave. I had to basically. I obviously sued Thermo Fisher, and unfortunately, I had to settle out of court. I mean, I wanted to take them to court, but the court, I wouldn't even be in court yet. So my hearing was scheduled for February, end of Feb this year,
So they
and
got away with a cop
they
out, cop out
basically
settlement.
starve you out. They
Yeah.
starve you out. They know damn well that you can't survive without because it's all based on loss of earnings. They know as soon as you'll have to get a job, and the more the amount you have to pay just drops.
Well, we
So I
see it
set
with the
up,
doctors, don't we? We see that. That's why doctors don't speak out. They've got that, not only the fear policy around whistleblowing and seeing what, I know people that have had their license back because they say we've seen what they've done to you, Dave, and I'll get loads of messages like that saying you're so brave. I'd love to speak out like you, but I've got a mortgage, kind of stuff. But then you've also you've got this capture, haven't you? You've got a 2 grand a month mortgage and you're used to a certain style of life, and then boom, it's gone. I know that because I've gone from an 120 grand salary to bugger all.
yeah,
And so,
yeah, it's,
yeah, we're grifters.
but it's, yeah, I
That's a
don't even
new
know what
word.
that means really, but what it has done, makes you realize that actually money is just really is the root of all evil, there, doesn't it? I mean, look, I'm fine without my farmer salary and my farmer bonus. Um, I've gone through the mill. Don't get me wrong, but I don't need that money. I don't. Looking back now, I was chasing. Had my Lexus hybrid. Thought I was doing my bit for climate change. Fast asleep. Looking back, and I was just what a fool I was chasing that life. It's just keeping up with the Joneses mentality. It's just no.
Definitely. And that's
Yeah.
something I've learned in the last few months, well, years really. I worked out yesterday that I've
Soon,
worked eight days in a year, 8 days, and I'm, all the letters after my name and all the knowledge I've got, 8 days, and each time being let go for trolls snitching and all the rest of it. It's just not good. But
it's funny, mate.
but
I
it's
mean,
quite.
I tried to apply. I had to basically apply for jobs as part of my case. I had to prove that I was at least attempting to get jobs. I applied for over 70 jobs in pharma, and I got one phone interview for Ipsen, based there over in Wrexham. They got a site over in Wrexham in Wales, quite a big pharmaceutical company. And the interview went really well. They obviously didn't know who I was.
Do you know the 70 that you went for, but for the one that you got a phone call? Did you ever get a rejection letter and a reason, or was it just ignored?
Yeah, a very standard. Not been successful this time. Candidates, the general response.
Yeah,
I
you've
did
been
challenge. I did challenge. I applied to go back to my previous places of work. I've never left on bad terms, and I've always done a good job, which is why I managed to get up into the role that I was. I was only 37 when I was like in this global expert role. So quite young. I was youngest person in my team by some distance. So I'm obviously not. I'm not a mug, and I'm applying for all these jobs. And I applied back for quotient scientist, and my mate heads up the development team there, who I've worked with in a previous company. And I said to Kings, just get us a job, will you, please, mate? Come on. I'll just go in. I'll work in the lab. I'll
keep your
keep
head
my mouth
down.
shut, keep my head down. I won't be client facing. You won't hear from me, but you'll know I'll do an amazing job for you. And he said, mate, I can't. The senior management won't. They know what you've done. They won't. They won't let me touch you.
What you've done, and that
Yeah,
basically is
but
great
it's
to come
because
to.
I'd spoken out to criticize the MHRA primarily, not the whistleblowing side aspect. It's been so publicly outspoken of the MHRA saying they've let the public down, they've not done their job.
So how long have you been at a farmer now for?
2 years, so it's gone over 2 years now. Yeah,
And what you've been up to in the interim? Because I know the answer to that, but just tell the audience what have you. I mean, it really broke my heart to hear some of this because you are a highly qualified, articulate, ethically driven, patient-centered, person who works in pharma. They're hard to find. You're on the
yeah.
blacklist, and you probably won't ever get a job back, or probably don't want to get a job back in pharma again. What have you been
No,
up to? What
I
sort of
mean,
things?
not really. I don't know. Well,
Because this costs you your family as well.
yeah,
You wanted to apply.
yeah. Oh, since whistleblowing, mate, my life is it's been like I don't know, like a Hollyoaks Christmas special script rejects in terms of stuff that's
It does feel
happened.
like that. We're all part of our own Netflix drama.
So well, obviously my marriage is that kind of broke down during the whistleblowing process. We'd separated before I was dismissed.
And was that
I
because you thought you'd lost the plot?
Yeah, well, not obviously many other reasons. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but that was the final straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, because she wasn't supported. She worked in professional sport. She'd had 2 injections to go back to work. She was a physio. Um, didn't want to hear.
No one wants that mirror in front of their face.
Didn't want to hear anything about it. And I was like, you're supposed to be supporting me here as my wife, and what we're supposed to make joint decisions on, and I'm about to do something that might massively impact. I had no support. Um, made to feel like I was mentally unstable. It even went to the point where she booked a an appointment with a mental health consult for me, and that was it. So it's not like, you clearly think I'm
So
mental.
you've gone through that with your ex-wife, and then
Ex-wife,
I
yeah.
just wanted to touch on,
So
have you had that from a professional capacity as well through that process of disciplinary? Did anyone ever offer you some rehabilitation, some remedial measures to reflect?
not professionally. I mean, I had my other best mate who was best man at my wedding come up and do an intervention. So he lives down in Cardiff. I love him to bits still. I'm hoping he'll come back to me when it all comes out, because
Has there been any mental health gaslighting apart from your ex-wife? Has there been any? If you lost the plot, yeah.
I think the people I used to work with I know for a fact that they think I've had a breakdown or have gone mental. The usual labels they toss on you.
Has
So
anyone reached out
I
to
just
you?
wind them up now, because I see them when I was working down the pub down my local to get a bit of coin. They used to come in on a Friday lunchtime or after work on a Friday,
And you're pulling in their
and I'm
pints.
pulling their points for them when they used to be in the lab working for me. And it's
That
funny.
must.
I mean,
How did you feel about that? Like you've got people who worked under you, you're the top dog, and then you're pulling their Guinness. How
I,
how
I
how did,
thought it
I
was
don't want
fun.
to pour it over the head.
I don't. I didn't care. And people would say, "Wow, you've sunk." And I was like, actually, working behind the bar was good fun.
I think you enjoyed it because you got to have
It was
conversations.
sociable. Yeah, it was sociable, and I got anyone who was willing to have a chat about it. Obviously, I was straight in there, and it was a great way of bringing up other points about keep cash as well. People who paid, anyone who paid with cash, I made a point of complimenting them on paying with cash, and then they'd ask why if they didn't already know. So yeah, it was a great way of spreading the word. I had a few people come in and talk to me. There's a lady who used to come in every Wednesday. She's coming to the nursing home and bring her dad for half a Guinness, and she was aware of what was going on. And we used to sit and have a chat. It was quiet on a Wednesday lunchtime, and she knew
Again,
everything.
just in what world is a highly qualified biotech graduate who's worked at a top level ending up pulling pints? And I know you enjoyed that, so there's
Oh
no
yeah,
and by the way, no detriment
I
to
saw it as
barman.
an opportunity to spread the word, Dave. I think more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to like a beer as well, and like going to the
Mhm.
pub. So it was a social aspect as well. But it was a great opportunity to spread.
Then you were doing a bit of DIY stuff, when you were fixing things and selling them
Yeah,
on,
yeah,
wheeling and
fixing up
dealing.
furniture, refurbing furniture. So I took the payout, and that allowed me to get out the house. I mean, I stayed in. We were separated for almost a year, and my daughter was there. I stayed there primarily because I was getting to see my daughter every day.
Mm.
Shanna, she's still will always be my absolute world, bless her. So I got the payment out of court. That allowed me to get out of the house, and I could pay rent then. So I moved out, started renovating furniture. I was still working bit in the pub, and then all sorts of weird and wonderful things started happening to me. I had a stalker. So at the start of, well, end of 2022, 2020, oh, what year was 2023, sorry. I had a stalker break into my home. I woke up to her stood over me. Yeah, she'd already taken my phone by that point. So I had to play, I had that.
What
I
was that
had
about? Was that just a mad person, or was do you reckon that was sort of like, when they say people disappear if they're
that was
disabled?
an interesting one, mate, because I actually met her on an unvaccinated dating website. And went and had a few dates, and she seemed perfectly not lovely. She was a really nice girl. She had this swallowing. That's why I'm going to mention it, because I think I don't know if there's an element of dark, kind of witchcraft going on here. But she had this ailment where she wasn't able to swallow solid food, and there was nothing wrong with her. Doctors didn't know why. And she was also spoke quite frequently about having friends who dabbled in dark practices, witchcraft. So I don't know if she was under some kind of curse, but she couldn't eat solids. That was the thing that stuck out for me. Anyway, we went on a few dates, and she just got very stalkerish and was calling me up, leaving answer phone messages relentlessly. Yeah, and then she came in and broke into my home. Well, I left the door open stupidly because I was in my house. Don't really need to feel like I need to lock the door when I'm in my own home. And I woke up to her stood over me, which was quite a scary. For a few seconds, I was like, "Ooh, fight or flight mode."
I
Kicked her
can
out of the house. She'd already taken my phone. She then started impersonating me on the phone, messaging people from my phone. I got the police involved. Anyway, I got rid of that. landlord, what else happened to me? Landlord sells the house, so I was homeless. So he puts the house on the market that I'm renting, gives me notice.
Was that because it was you, or was there a reason that did they
No,
manufacture this
he wanted to
exclusion?
move in his mate who was going through a divorce.
Okay.
So he got me gone, and then his mate moved in. He wasn't selling the house at all. He just played the game.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because I was unemployed and I live in Ruddington, the village I live in is a nice village. It's quite a competitive village from a rental market. I couldn't find anywhere. So I was homeless. I was 48 hours to move to Cornwall to go and live with my sister.
Mm.
Obviously at that point I put all my stuff into storage, and that's when all my storage facility
You've
got
just not had
flooded.
a good spell, have you? Because that even got soaked, didn't it? It's just
Yeah, yeah. I was driving
did,
home from Yorkshire, September. I remember it. And I was driving down the M1. I could see all these thunderstorms over Nottingham. I thought, oh, it's like some kind of God storm going on. Anyway, I take some stuff down to my storage facility, open the door up, and it's just 6 inches deep of water. Everything's flooded.
I was just about to say it never rains, but it pours, but that'd be in bad taste, wouldn't it?
Uh,
Like
yeah,
everything
I mean,
went.
I remember saying to people at the time, it was just relentless. I was just so numb. Felt so numb. Just it didn't really affect me. It's just something else, and that's what I'm a bit like now, really.
To finish on a high note, and I don't know if you want to speak about this, I didn't really check before, but the project that you're involved in.
Well,
So
this is what I was going to say. The flooding of that's why I think that was God's way of helping me.
pick up the arse.
Well, not some kick at the arse. It was all stuff. It was in storage because I didn't need it. It wasn't essential to my life, and it just got destroyed, and it allowed me to get an insurance claim. And now I'm using all that money to buy kit and get my business
Want to
up
talk us
again.
through that? You don't give your pharma secrets away because I don't want you to be
Oh, I'm happy to give them
compromised.
away, mate. I've done podcasts trying to give give my formulation away so people could do it. Because I've got no financial clout behind me. I've been trying to do this. I've had the formulation now for 18 months.
So anyone, I'll just say before you describe it, I know what you're about to say, but anyone who is in a financial position to help with this project, obviously contact myself or at the Honest GP or Andrew directly because this is the principle, and I'll let you describe it, is not to make lots of money. Your principle for doing this was to help the vaccine injured in a
Yeah,
way that you were seeing wasn't being satisfied by other supplements.
yeah.
I'll hand over to you, Andrew, and
Well, I was just looking for some help. I mean, as you say, Dave, the vaccine injured weren't even being acknowledged that they were vaccine injured by a lot of their doctors. So they've had such a rough ride. I mean, they've had it worse, way worse than this. I mean, they've obviously had their physical health and lost relatives, etc. But I felt like I've got all this experience in formulating, designing medicines that I should put it to good use, really. So I started looking at ways of one, removing clots from our blood, and two, disabling spike protein. And at the time, Peter McCullough and his wellness company were promoting their bromelain nattokinase oral products.
curcumin as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I was looking at that and I was reading about that, and I said, well, they're delivering. I was quite critical actually of the formulation because it's delivering proteins or enzymes orally in a capsule because that's what it is. Take a capsule, go straight into your stomach. Your stomach is really acidic pH. It's also got pepsin in there. So you're opening up enzymes to one, proteolytic degradation from the pepsin, and then two, extreme pH. Now, I'm referring back to my biochemistry, enzyme, lock and key, specificity kind of education from Rockefellers. I'm assuming that still holds. So anyone who doesn't, protein enzyme conformation and shape and structure and lock and key and all that active sites, is that no longer applies, then I apologize. But that's the science I was working off. You're swallowing that, it's going to denature the enzymes, so you're not going to actually absorb, and you need it in your blood. You don't need it in your stomach or in your GI tract. You need it in your plasma because the issues are being caused by obviously spike protein getting everywhere all around the body.
And that is a big problem across the board with supplements, isn't it? They're packed with all these things that are in a
Yeah, and most of it you just wheel poo out.
wheel poo out, and the rest is
Yeah,
degraded, and very little of the
yeah, and
capsules
that's the thing. People
bioavailable.
need to be very aware that just by swallowing something, your body is designed to protect itself at all costs. So even when you swallow something, it's still technically not inside the body until it passes that gut wall. And
Mm.
even then, you've got the might of the liver. The blood goes straight up the hepatic portal vein up to your liver to be
Don't know about my
purified.
liver.
So
That's another
there's
story.
so many first pass metabolism for delivery of proteins and enzymes. Bioavailability. It's well known in the industry. I mean, I'm not everyone who knows anything about formulating proteins will should be nodding their head with me here that you just don't get the bioavailability from taking enzymes orally. So
So you've
I,
done some work about kind of the substances you needed that had some evidence base behind reversing spike, etc. And then you were thinking about how's the best way to get
yeah,
this.
the best way to get it into the body. I mean, that's all what I've done. People not come to me with a drug molecule and say they want to treat X indication, and I think, well, where do we need that drug primarily, and what's the best way of getting it there? Um,
So
and
this doesn't sound to me like this time next year I'll be a millionaire. I want to get rich from this. This sounds like I want to use my skills. I want to help people. I've got some ideas, and I want to see how the best way to
Well,
achieve.
yeah, I mean, I don't care. As I said, I've tried to give the formulation away to people with money to do it, because all I care about is people getting better. Um, and so we're there now. I've tweaked the formulation. It's a nasal spray, so just delivering straight up. Yes, the doses are small because you're limited by how much you can actually spray at the nose. But the beauty of it is your nasal mucosa is so enriched with blood vessels, and it's close to the blood-brain barrier as well. I formulated the nattokinase and the bromelain with two excipients there that should help it get it across the nasal mucosa into the plasma. So I'm basically good to go. I've literally got my dining room that's been converted into a lab.
We're allowed to see. Don't show any pictures of anything. But no,
Uh,
is it like something out of Breaking Bad, but the naturopathic version?
no, I wish I was cooking meth, mate.
I
But
do
no.
not support the comments of my guest in this. Disclaimer.
From a financial perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's basically, yeah, it's I'm just looking at the moment trying to negotiate to get a laminar flow cabinet because this is going nasal products from a regulatory perspective. Again, they have tighter microbial limits because it's obviously much a riskier environment to deliver. So I'm trying to do the right things, like what I would be doing if I was doing it in my job.
Mm.
If I manufacture this product in a laminar flow cabinet, it should protect it from a microbial.
So you're literally good to go on this now.
Good to go.
But for some
I've,
backing,
I've
really.
teamed up. I've teamed up with a lady who was vax injured, who was like she had her own business with some healthcare brands. So she's basically done all this kind of branding, marketing, website builds. Because that's not my cup of tea. I've let her get on with. Excuse me, Ian.
Oh,
I've
you
let her
didn't
get on with
know.
all that. Come on, pup.
You're tickling her in the right place.
And
What's in
so,
it? Can I ask what's in it? Are you able to disclose? Do you mind?
what the formulation?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's chitosan, which is a mucoadhesive. So it's negative. That's the opposite charge to your nasal mucosa, so it'll ionically bond.
Mm.
Um, cyclodextrin, so that opens up tight junctions between cells. So I'm hoping that might help from a PK perspective. Bromelain, nattokinase, and then sodium phosphate as a buffer. I need to do some work to prove that I don't need a preservative. I want to keep it preservative free, obviously. But with it being enzymes, it's aqueous. So there's a threat of microbial contamination. So it's at pH around pH 6 because that's most suitable for nasal mucosa and enzyme function. So I might have to include a preservative. I need to do some antimicrobial effectiveness testing, but I'm hoping the chitosan itself is antimicrobial. So I might have kind of a self-preserving system, in which case people can just carry it around in their handbags all day.
Have a couple of sprays. And it sounds
And
like you've got like a low dose of everything, but a cumulative of.
yeah, so it's a low dose. It's a low dose of bromelain and nattokinase. So you'll only each actuation or each spray is about 100 microliters, so
Any
0.1 of a
reason just
mil.
those two, or
Just those two in
have
terms
you
of the actual
dabbled with
actives.
others? But
I haven't bothered. I haven't bothered with the others because I've always tried to keep formulations simple, Dave. I'm not too sure how effective the curcumin would be as well in that setting.
Going up your nose as well. I don't think it's
Well,
powerful.
insoluble as well. I don't really want to be delivering suspension up there and people having turmeric stuck up there inside that,
Things a bit as well. No, but exciting stuff. So you putting your the moral of the story is you're putting your skills to good use today.
Yeah, and what we're close to launching. What we want to do as well, as I've said, is we want to reward because we're not, it's not about the money. We want to reward the nurses that have gone on above and beyond. So any vaccines people have had really positive experiences with nurses, we want to basically reward them with like a cash, almost like a cash prize in a way to kind of boost up their salaries because nurses get paid such an obscene amount of money. What was the other incentive we want to do? There was another idea we had as well about giving it back to the community. Oh, that was it. Paying for vaccine treatment. So people, if they needed to go privately for treatment because they're not getting the treatment they need from the NHS, they can apply to us and we can help support them with their
It
funding for
sounds
their.
like you're a completely immoral person. I'm sorry. I mean, all that making all that profit, if it does go that way, and then ploughing it straight back into nurses and the vaccine
Well,
industry, disgraceful.
it's got the potential to be huge, Dave. I mean, I was looking at the World Health Organization said the other day 5.65 billion doses have been given of this worldwide. Yeah, it's a lot of people.
And there's a lot of carnage. I
There's a
mean,
big market.
there's the ones
And
that realise they are, and there's a big, ever-growing group of people that are having their eureka moments and
yeah,
realising
and I'm
the
getting
health
contacted from
implications.
people all around the world, New Zealand, Italy, US, who want to try this. If it works, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to cure you.
Well, even in the form that you mentioned, I mean, Peter McCulloch's done the work on the on nattokinase specifically, hasn't he? And
Yeah,
seen what it does for microclots and the endothelial
and
dysfunction.
in theory, I'm delivering it in a better way.
Yeah, that's what I'm
In
saying. The
theory,
results are brilliant in his studies, but you're delivering better
yeah,
bioavailability.
yeah. I
And,
mean,
and
it'd be nice like, at some point as well to actually get some physical, get a phlebotomist on side and do some actual blood work before and after, whether that's assaying
cracking
spike in the blood, maybe doing basic PK just to show that we're getting the enzymes into the plasma as well. So that's something we want to look at. I mean, taking blood, obviously, there's ethics involved in that, but I'm
oh,
sure it's
ethics was so 2019, mate. Don't worry.
well. Why am I still here caring about ethics when what we just been through clearly don't exist anymore?
Andrew, final. I'll do this thing like Jerry Springer's final thoughts. So Andrew Horler's final thoughts. You've got a room full of pharma executives, ex-colleagues. It's 2025. Hopefully, they're keeping an eye on the mainstream media and seeing some of the damning exposés and seeing some of the peer-reviewed meta-analyses, etc. And you just, firstly, you want your apology. We'll park the apology and the
Yeah.
compensation. You want to encourage them to speak out about the perils of pharma and turning a blind eye. How do you encourage these ostrich syndrome riddled characters to speak out, or is it impossible?
It's a difficult one, mate, because a lot of the people I deal with gone through academia and then they've gone through the pharma institution for years and they've become institutionalized, robotic. So I guess the best way I think is trying to connect with them on something that actually means something to them. Whether they have to do that on an individual basis, but everyone's got a soft spot for something, whether it's their kids, their dog. Something matters to some, we're not all just Bill Gates psychopaths walking around here. And I guess it's kind of tapping into that, what their weak points are for and almost making them emotionally feel again. Does that make
Mm,
sense? Because they clearly don't seem to have the empathy that recognizes that this, unless it touches them personally and it's their brother that's dying from the jab, they don't care. So it's
mm,
just trying to encourage them to have that patient focus again, because it's that individual focus. And what would you do if it was your family, and making them realize that there's
mm. You're absolutely right, Andrew, because I've seen that from my perspective with the health and well-being coaching that I do, is that people will come, their eureka moments being they've been to too many funerals or their spouse has had the jab and
I've not been to one this year. I don't know what's going on.
or they're queuing up at our little village church. They can't dig the graves quick enough.
Last year,
They're onto the second row now in here.
I've never been to so many funerals last year. I think I had 8 or 9 in the whole year. It was terrible.
Yeah, and like we're not at that age that you would expect that, are we? I mean, respect. How
Yeah.
old are you, Andrew, now?
I'm 40 now.
Yeah, 42. So we're not in that era where you start having those
No,
eight funerals a year.
no. And yeah, mates dropping with cancer. And a good friend of mine died back in October. It's just hard to see. The other thing I'd say, mate, is I question why did they get in the industry in the first place? I mean, I said at the start, why did I got into it because I was under this impression that pharma was there to make people better. I mean, such a stupid thing to say now looking back, but why did they do? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah,
You know,
that's
what
exactly that's the question I ask, and I've said that to in previous podcasts that ask them why when they turned up
try
suited
and
for
try and
their
ignite
med
some
school
fire in
interview.
them, you know?
What were you thinking when? I mean, you get asked directly, why do you want to do medicine? And I remember the answer to this day, and it's similar to what your answer was, just that, I
Hmm.
want to help people get better and go through their journey with them and cradle to grave doctoring, etc. And we've both followed that, and yet we're on the scrap heap, good and
We're
proper
not. We're not. We're just parked to one side, waiting to rise.
lepers of society. On that note, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for bearing all really today. I think anyone who watches this will see this is a man with a heart absolutely in the right place in everything he's done from the beginning of his career to the end. And has been through so much adversity. I mean, I'd probably rank you even higher than me for facing the wrath of the farmer gods for speaking out, and it's cost you pretty much everything. But despite that, positive outlooks there, looking to improve life. You've even looked at the positives of pulling
That's
pints for
it.
your
Oh yeah.
ex-employees. So
Oh
it's a
yeah.
fair play to you, and thank you ever so much for the conversation. And I hope this one does go viral because it's quite unique. I've done NHS staff and vaccine injuries, but this is a man from behind enemy lines. Can I call it? Sorry,
No, right.
behind the healing lines
Yeah.
of Big
I'm
Pharma.
not, I'm not ashamed to say I worked for the devil for a period of time. Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, it's been amazing. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll be releasing this shortly.
Cheers, Dave. Good to see you, mate. Take care.
Bye bye.